performance versus your mind?
I mean, obviously, both are in sync. So one follows the other.
When you bring your body and mind together.
Yeah. And that was the discussion we were just having before we decided to hit record. Do you want to kind of give
Yeah, I mean...
what we just discussed?
We're talking about meditation, how you use white noise for lifting now.
Yes.
And how, even at the house, when we have kids over, we need some type of music or air conditioner, fan, something going in the background, because 6 kids talking at once is
distracting. Yeah. I mean, yeah, hell, if you want to, be blunt about it and unempathetic.
Yeah, but it helps with your lifting too.
Yeah, I think it helps with lifting, but it also helps just day-to-day thoughts, but also just being in control of your thoughts and being able to fully control your inner dialogue. And what I have found, like, with experience, with training, but also working, for instance, because I was diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, but I think it more was not being able to focus, and I think it was a skill that I just hadn't developed 100% yet. And I think the doctors perhaps may have misdiagnosed me. I mean, obviously I'm not.
I don't think that you were misdiagnosed. I think when you're younger and you don't have, the correct tools to either verbalize or exercise your emotion, because all energy or all emotion is energy, and all energy needs an outlet. So when you're that young, you're not able to regulate your nervous system.
I also think your environment plays a very important role.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Nurture versus nature.
Yeah, and with my mom being a yeller like she was, with our house just being constant chaos, dysfunction, yelling, screaming, fighting, hitting, punching, abusive, it's a terrible environment for focusing, concentrating, and pursuing
Feeling
academics
safe.
and feeling safe. So you're always on edge. You're always fight or flight. I'm unable to really focus on task at hand because I'm trying to be alert for something.
Well, you're on fear.
Yeah, it's like fight or flight. You're
You're
in survival mode for
right.
the most part. So being in survival mode, yeah, you're focused, but you're focused on surviving, not anything else. So
like the long-term aspect.
Yeah. So when I started training, I started utilizing music to help, hit PRs, arouse you prior to sets, gets you amped up. But then I started to realize training performance quality would be very hit or miss.
Why?
Because I wasn't...
What were you focusing on when you were listening to music?
I was more focused on moving the weight from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
I was more focused on waiting for that beat drop or that specific lyric to really hit.
The lyrics, yeah.
The lyrics. And then in turn, it was just causing too much shit going... There was too much noise.
Yeah.
Too much noise going on. There was not enough, there was too much distraction. There wasn't enough focus on the task at hand,
right.
Which was me moving that weight from point A to point B. But also, in turn, you're still utilizing so many different muscle groups under load while you're performing, let's say a deadlift, for instance, that if you aren't fully engaged with every single thing that is firing, it can be, a rep or a missed rep, and that could be the difference between an injury and a PR.
Yeah.
And that could be, the difference between a good warm-up and a shitty warm-up. But if you're constantly relying on external sources, in my opinion, what happens when you take them away? Because at that point in time, they're a distraction. I don't think they're really that helpful.
And when you take all that away, you won't be able to perform perform.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I realized was when either my headphones would die or so my headphones would either die or so my headphones would either die mid-training session and or something would happen. And I would realize that my performance would dip and I just wouldn't be too invested with training anymore. And then I started to realize, oh crap, like am I using my headphones to train, like to help me train, or are they just a distraction? And are they causing even more of a distraction to my training? Mm-hmm. And it didn't really hit me until, what's this, my 12th, 13th year of training, my 4th contest prep, being about 2 weeks out. And you know how everybody has that preset, training anxiety, the deeper and deeper and deeper they get into the prep because they want to match the logbook, retain tissue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I too started to encounter bouts, waves of extra anxiety, nerves, pressure, like, will I be able to amount to the challenge? And it wasn't until I started to experiment with using white noise that it completely removed all that clutter inside of my head, and I was able to actually focus on my thoughts individually, because we have so many racing thoughts throughout the course of the day. Mm-hmm. We have so much shit going on throughout the course of our days that, when we're, sleep deprived, exhausted, fatigued, run down from work,
you want to fill up every space, every second to distract you from hunger, pain, sleep, or, fatigue.
And here's it's like a catch-22 almost, or the lean into it and face it instead of distracting it. Yeah, feel it. Today was, day 2 of my, heavy carb depletion day, and I didn't train with any music. I felt every single muscle firing with nothing inside of it. It felt empty, but it felt visceral, raw, surreal, and human. And I often feel we try to run away from the pain, from the suffering, when that is only going to make you stronger. It's going to teach you. It's going to help you navigate through those feelings, those emotions that you otherwise have yet to encounter. But the only way, and this is kind of how I dealt with my social anxiety when I was 21, the only way for me to overcome my fear was to place myself amongst that fear. Kind of like, you face that man in the mirror. Mm-hmm. And you look him, her, them, they in the eyes, and you just face it head on, and you
don't run from it.
No, fully embrace it. It's very similar to my wife's journey with cancer, and accepting that was one of the hardest times in my life, because I had to deal. This wasn't my first bout having one of my loved ones have to face cancer, but again, that's something that you can't run away from, because it's
not going to go away.
It's not going to go away. You can't distract.
If you ignore it, it's not going to go away.
No, it's not going to go away. So
it's
have to
get worse.
You have to create, a plan of action. You have to troubleshoot, assess. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, modern medicine, science are where they are at now. But again, it's very similar, because
Okay, but what have you learned from yourself in the white noise? Like, what have you noticed using the white noise over,
Yes, I'm sure this is recording. Yeah, we're good. Cool.
Like heavy metal or rap?
What have I noticed? I've noticed a lot more. So I train in the mornings now. I've noticed my pre-training window. So like when I wake up, do my own thing, it's not as anxiety induced. So I don't have any fear, because I have my intention set. Mm-hmm. And so with the white noise, I have found that I am able to just fully tap into my thoughts, but then also I'm able to more efficiently kind of like do like a body scan and assess what's going on, within my physique. But then in turn, I just feel like it's...
What's a body scan?
Well, it's just
I'm saying
it's kind of going like you're doing like a head to toe assessment of what could be off, what could be firing improperly. Like, let's say I'm training legs, for instance, and my knees might be a little bit more crackling. So
What's your age?
We old as hell, cuz. So what I have to do is, go through a few mobility drills to ensure that that muscle is firing properly and not to a point where I'm getting like a pain referral from that, plane of movement. And movemental. This was an issue that this was something that I didn't assess because I would constantly always have headphones on and I would always have rap or rock music playing, and it would just be distracting to the point where I couldn't focus on what's going on internally because there's so much shit going on externally.
Or you wouldn't feel
Yes.
the pain until it was too late.
Correct.
Or afterwards.
Correct. And that was what I was discussing a little bit before we started recording this video. Was I mentioned to Brittany that my training almost took like a role reverse. It's almost like I had to become a beginner again because I forgot that while under load or like while performing a movement, I dumbed it down to the point where we're moving load from point A to point B. Now, that could potentially be because I've always been like a powerlifter, power builder, but it didn't really occur to me that my injuries that started to get racked up, and they weren't severe, were more due to that. So not being in complete control, mind muscle connection wise, with the muscles that I were training. And I think that was mainly because of, one, the distraction from the music. But then two, when you're being distracted by music, you tend to rush through your training because there's nothing regulating
go
the
by
pace.
The beat.
Yeah, or you go by the BPM, or you go by the pace, and I found
it's not
that
yours.
And that was one of the biggest things I noticed after like a set is, how your heart's pumping, your adrenaline's racing after you complete like a top set. It would continue on, and it would just continue increasing my anxiety throughout that training session. And then I realized a few weeks ago, as soon as I'm done with that top set, put it back on white noise. So originally I was alternating back and forth. Heavy song, light song to switch on, switch off. But then there was too much switching on, switching off.
Too much activity.
Too much inconsistency within performance, but also within breathing, how I felt during the session, recovery. And so, knowing that, I decided to take the plunge and go strictly white noise. And it was phenomenal. I'm able to focus on my breathing. I'm able to by focusing on my breathing, it allows me to be patient, be intentional with every action.
It automatically regulates your nervous system.
Yeah. I'm not going through the motions. I'm not wasting or leaking, bleeding energy that otherwise could be more productive and useful towards training.
Right.
And that's what people fail to realize. I actually made a post about this, is training is kind of like equivalent to an artist with their brush stroke. An artist is in control, whether they're aware or not, of every single muscle in their body, like when they're moving that brush stroke. So very similar to a rep, we want every single rep to be as accurate as possible, because execution is pretty much the forefront of growing muscles.
Well,
so therefore, if your rep is inaccurate, if that brush stroke is a little bit off, it could potentially mess up that portrait or that canvas. But again, we're not aiming for perfection, so obviously it won't be perfect. But again,
to go back to like
take your time.
You're focused on moving something from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And that's, I would feel like a lot of contest prep competitors feel that way.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think
is that do you think that would be common to say?
I do think it's somewhat common. I mean, we do dependent on camp, dependent on like tribe, dependent on like program design and philosophy of training. I do think
for the most part, it's okay. You have to do this movement this many times.
Yeah.
Get your pre-work in. Post-workout, blah blah blah. You're marking your T's and whatever.
Simplistic way of looking at it. Yeah.
But instead of looking at it as you're moving an object from point A to point B, what are all the steps that you have to take in order to move it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, what's being overlooked.
So I agree and disagree. So there's... Were you finished, right?
Yeah.
So there's almost like a... there's a blessing in disguise right there, too. There's like a fine line that you can cross where you are thinking too much about the movement, that you start to suffer paralysis analysis, and you...
Right.
But yes, I think if there's something wrong with your training, I definitely think execution should be the first thing that you address.
I don't think it has to be wrong, though. I'm saying to mentally prepare and to physically prepare
Mm-hmm.
to do a better movement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You're not gonna, like, you know, having that white noise and firing those muscles before the movement.
Yeah, you would do a drill before.
Like,
Yeah. I think you can do some pre-prep work prior to your bodybuilding or, like, weight training.
I'm just saying, like, slowing it down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You've mentioned that has helped your training, because the leaner you get, the longer it takes to warm up. And you're almost really back at the beginning, because, you know, you may or may not be hitting those PRs, but you're maintaining strength.
Correct, yes. It's, great, and that's a really great point, actually. And it's slowing. It's funny because I did do that today too. Was as you do get leaner, naturally you are going to slow down. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
Prep brain. So even just moving your body in general, just walking, moving side to side laterally, even that requires tremendous amounts of extra effort and energy.
Mm-hmm.
That with a prep body that's suboptimal body fat, that also causes leverages to be messed with, which leverages while you're training can dictate how the movement moves, feels, and looks. So you knock that one out the park because it's 100% true. When you do get leaner, slowing rep cadence down is very, very, very important. One, to just ensure and lock down like technique, but also to ensure that you aren't setting yourself up for injury, because
well, bringing your body and mind together, especially during prep. Everyone gets prep brain. It's inevitable. Whether you are great at managing it or terrible, the same. You're still going through very similar things than the next person, you know?
And if you are not, like, 100% concentrated while performing a movement under load, there is such risk for injury.
Yes.
And it's not even under a top set. It's always while warming up. So again, what you said was 100% correct.
Yes.
So while you are warming up, that is when. And here's the thing with warm-ups: you should treat your warm-ups like your top sets. Everything you do should be with intent. It should be the same as before, regardless of the amount of weight that is on the bar.
Intention is huge.
Intention is 100%.
Intention, manifestation.
Yep.
You know, believe it or not, the mind is a powerful thing, and it's proven, you know?
Yeah, no, big time.
Child gets ran over, and 4'11" mother picks up a car. Like, what?
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to bring your body and mind together in order to achieve.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I feel, just in this niche, the fitness industry in general, I feel there's so much.
It's too much body.
There's too much focus on the training, on the diet.
Yeah.
But that's great. We have so much. We have so much information for training and diet, and we have been able to produce all these cool, strong physiques. But it's like there's one area that, like, well, not just one area, but one of the most important areas. Like, what happens when you're dieting? What happens when you're training? 9 times out of 10, she's not going to be with me. 10 times out of 10, I'm alone. Like most people that are training and prepping, who the fuck wants to go in?
3 months.
Who the fuck wants to go and train till X amount, till 10 o'clock at night, do cardio with their spouse? Nobody. So what happens?
You're alone.
You're alone. In your head.
And
by yourself. With your thoughts.
And that's something that, like, I don't think the community highlights enough or
they
talks about enough, because, like, it is,
It's that
it
old
can
school-
be
it's that
a
old
very
school toughness bullshit.
lonely time
Yeah.
for both competitor and family.
And that's one of the biggest like myths, is that bodybuilding is a lonely sport, and it's like, no, you made it to be a lonely sport because that's how you were taught. And it goes back to, if you were educated properly, you wouldn't have to do it that way. And we were talking about that too the other day too. How when I first started bodybuilding, I was scared of it. I thought people would judge me, look at me weirdly. Remember how I brought this up? And it wasn't until I had kind of like this, like an epiphany of sorts, where I'm like, maybe if I had introduced them more into this sport that I love, they would get a better understanding and they would be more supportive. Kind of like Brittany. Because every single one of my girlfriends, my parents, they all hated on what I did. They thought it was stupid. They thought it was funny. But it wasn't until I met Brittany, who actually had a past in theater and also a mother who
Had an ED.
She was a little hesitant, apprehensive when we originally started dating, and I did fail and drop out of my first prep. Chose her instead.
You're welcome.
Good decision.
If you like it.
But we sat down and like had a discussion afterwards, and she gave me a lot of words of wisdom on how to make this a healthy integration into the life, as opposed to it being
food
focused
and image
and narcissistic and about me.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we've had some bumps in the road, obviously.
Everybody
does with social media and trying to market, brand, and...
But communication.
Yeah, communication has been key, especially in our relationship.
And that just goes back to, being mindful. Like, you have to be honest with your feelings. You have to be honest with your partner about your wants and needs.
Big time. And don't people please. Like, that's your wife, that's your husband, that's your significant other. Be honest, be 100% transparent. If you're hurting, admit you hurt. And that's something that this year is the first time that I have actually accepted it. And like I have mentioned in the past, like, every time, life is a journey of fuck-ups. Life is a journey of, your goal should be continuously improving. So you should be obsessed with progression within life. So if you're not getting better, what are you doing with yourself? So with bodybuilding, it's my passion, it's my career, blah, 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 blah. So I like to get as much feedback as I can from the ones that matter the most, so I can continue doing the sport that I love. So I can continue doing the damn hobby that I love.
But can we talk?
But talk about what?
Good.
We're not there yet. Where was I going with that one? Anyways, let's circle it back.
But communication, honesty.
Yeah, communication, honesty, giving
feedback.
Telling your partner everything that there is, even the color of your poop sometime. But yeah, that's in my opinion, one of the most important parts of just integrating this whole thing if you have a family, or even if you have a significant other.
You gotta talk.
And that's not even like with bodybuilding. That could be with just sports. That could be with anything in general. Like if you both have hobbies, if she's an artist, I'm an artist, like you both need to set, obviously expectations, boundaries, blah, 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 but communication is key.
But even with our son, like, he communicates, like, some things that he sees different with you, and that's awesome. That's what I was going with it. A couple weeks ago, I picked him up, and he goes, "How's Brett?"
Yeah.
No, he's like, "How's Brett?"
So for those of you that don't know, I'm not a smiling kind of. I don't smile that much. None of us smile. We just have RBF. So we got resting bitch face syndrome. I'm not that much of a smiler. I got janky ass teeth, and I always look like I'm angry. But it's not the case. And when I'm really, 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 really ran down in prep, it just, my face wears like everything, and it's just my face. And I could be in the best mood ever, but my face would be like, oh. So
he overcompensates.
So I try to overcompensate just because
he doesn't want to come off as a dick. He's just tired.
Well, it's the service industry. You gotta say something to them within 6 feet type of thing. I always have in the back of my mind, you are the face, of that company. It's just how I was brainwashed with every single job. So therefore, prep or not, I have a big ass smile on my face like my mom does.
Okay, but
And it's painful.
the fact that we left the house and you're like, okay, bye guys, have a great day, love you.
It was on some Truman Show shit. It was, and if I don't see you tomorrow, have a great morning, good afternoon, and good night. It's like, that couldn't have been more artificially
and
created.
Me and my son look at each other, we're like, we gotta go.
It's like, Brett's fucking high as shit. What the fuck is he smoking?
Alright, let's go get at my boobies, come on.
Yeah, we're here getting Brittany's prosthetics.
Ooh.
This is vlog number 1. If you guys and gals like this, let us know. If you didn't, let us know. Hit the
We don't
like,
really care
hit the
anyways.
like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Deuces.